In this video, we're going to cover a few key things. First, what the big reviewers are saying, what I agree with and what I don't. Most importantly, we'll take a close look at PS5 versus PS5 Pro performance, and the results here might surprise you. We're not covering the story at all today, of course, and we're skipping the usual rundown of dual protagonists that you've probably heard a million times by now. So this will be completely spoiler-free. More importantly, is this game a good fit for you? Because it really depends on what type of gamer you are. Are you an Assassin's Creed fan? And if so, what kind? Old school Assassin's Creed or the new RPG style era? Or do you fall somewhere in between? By the end of this video, hopefully, you'll have a solid idea of whether this game is worth your time. Now, just to be clear, I wouldn't call this video a review of Assassin's Creed Shadows. I'm nowhere near finishing the game. My official review will be out 1 to 2 months after launch. Why? Because I want to experience the game as a gamer, not rush through it, just to put out a review. And later in the video, you'll see exactly why this matters. Shadows reviews are out and, wow, opinions are all over the place. Some people are calling it one of the best Assassin's Creed games in years, while others are saying it's just another bloated Ubisoft open world that doesn't quite hit the mark. So let's break it down. What are the critics actually saying? What do I agree with? And what do I think they got totally wrong? First up, Gamerant gave this game a 9 out of 10, calling it a spectacular return to form. They say it's one of the most tightly paced AC games in years, with meaningful side activities, satisfying combat, and a compelling plot. Eurogamer gave it a 4 out of 5, praising its majestic scope and impressive detail. They also mentioned some exciting moments for longtime AC fans, though overall, the game stands alone. It's not bogged down by modern-day storylines or returning characters. And then there's The Gamer, also giving it a 4 out of 5, who says that while Shadows does suffer from some repetition and bloat, it's still one of their entries yet. So basically, the visuals, historical setting, and gameplay variety, that's where this game shines. And, I mean, let's be real, Ubisoft absolutely nailed the aesthetic of feudal Japan. This was always the dream setting for an Assassin's Creed game, and from what I've seen, it delivers. Now, this is where things start to get divisive. Extra Life gave it an 8.5 out of 10, calling it expansive, detailed, and polished, but criticizing the thin story and immersion-breaking design choices. And then you have Hardcore Gamer 3.5 out of 5, who points out that combat and stealth are deeper than ever, but, big but, RPG mechanics dilute the experience, making things unnecessarily tedious. So this is the classic Ubisoft problem, right? They keep tweaking the formula, but they can't seem to strike the perfect balance between old-school, stealth-based AC and the massive RPG direction they've been pushing since Origins. And that brings us to the biggest criticism. This is where the 6 out of 10 from Grub Online comes in. Their reviewer, Jakub Paluszek, had this brutally poetic line. I have experienced quite a few really cool moments while playing Assassin's Creed Shadows, but after 40 hours, all those moments are lost in time, like tears in rain. Damn. His main complaint? The game has interesting ideas, but none of them are strong enough to really make it stand out. And ultimately, it just feels like yet another massive Ubisoft open world. This is also where hardcore gamers' complaints make sense. Like, yeah, Japan looks gorgeous, and yeah, there are cool moments. But if the story is weak and the RPG mechanics make things feel grindy, then what's the point? So where does that leave us? From what I can tell, Shadows is a love letter to both classic AC fans and RPG-era fans, but it doesn't fully commit to either. If you're here for stealth parkour and tight mission design, you might feel frustrated by the RPG systems. If you're here for a vast open world, tons of activities, and cinematic storytelling, the slow pacing and narrative issues might hold it back. And that's why these reviews are all over the place. Some people love the immersive historical setting and polished combat, others feel like it's just another massive Ubisoft checklist. As for me, well, I'll hold my full judgment until I've had more time with it. But so far, it's looking like Shadows is a strong entry in the series, but maybe not the revolutionary game some of us were hoping for. What do you guys think? Are you playing it? Are the reviews making you more or less excited? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's talk. So, let's talk about performance. Assassin's Creed games have a bit of a history here. Some run great, some not so much. But Shadows is different. This is the first Assassin's Creed game built entirely for current-gen hardware. No more PS4, no more Xbox One holding things back. And that's a big deal. Ubisoft went all in on their Anvil engine, adding ray-traced global illumination, physics-based weather, destructible environments. It's the biggest tech upgrade the series has seen in years. But here's the real question. How does it actually run? And, more importantly, which mode should you play in? So on PS5 and Xbox Series X, you've got 3 main modes to choose from. 30 frames per second quality mode, best graphics, full ray tracing, but locked at 30 frames per second, 40 frames per second balanced mode, a mix of high-end visuals and better responsiveness, but only works on 120 Hz displays, 60 frames per second performance mode, the smoothest experience, but with fewer visual effects. Here's the catch. Ray tracing is only fully enabled in the 30 and 40 frames per second modes. If you go for 60 frames per second, you're losing ray-traced lighting and getting a downgraded baked lighting system, basically what we saw in Valhalla and Mirage. Now, Xbox Series S is a different story. It only has one mode, 30 frames per second, and even then, it struggles. Ubisoft had to cut back ray tracing, downgrade textures, remove strand-based hair physics, and even with all those cutbacks, the frame rate still isn't super stable. So if you're playing on Series S, just know you're not getting the full generational leap that PS5 and Series X players are seeing. So after all that, what's the best way to play this game? 40 frames per second is the sweet spot. You keep the next-gen lighting, strand-based hair physics, and still get better responsiveness than 30 frames per second, but you'll need a 120 Hz display to use it. If you're on Series S, you don't really get a choice. It's 30 frames per second or nothing, and even then, it's not as smooth as it should be. Now let's talk about what actually makes this game look and feel different from past Assassin's Creed titles. First up, alright, let's talk about destruction, because Ubisoft really went all out this time. In past Assassin's Creed games, the world always looked good, but it never really reacted to you. You could swing your sword all day and nothing would happen to the environment. But in Shadows, that's changed. Picture this. You're in the middle of a fight in a crowded market. You swing your katana and bam, fruit stalls collapse, baskets spill over, and wooden crates shatter into pieces. It's not just for show, it actually changes the way you fight. Need a quick escape? Slash through a shoji paper door and disappear into the shadows. Want to make a distraction? Knock over a stack of barrels and send them rolling toward your enemies. And it gets even crazier. Grass actually flattens when you crawl through it, leaving a trail behind you. So if you're sneaking around, you better be careful, because enemies can track where you've been. Even fabric reacts realistically. If you slice through a tent or a hanging banner, the tear follows the exact path of your blade. No more preset animations. It all happens dynamically in real time. This is the first time an Assassin's Creed game has felt this alive. Objects don't just sit there, they break, they move, and react based on what you do. It makes combat feel chaotic in the best way possible. This is the kind of next-gen world interactivity we've been waiting for, and in Shadows, it's finally here. Ray-traced global illumination. This is huge. It basically means lighting reacts dynamically to the world. The way the sun hits buildings, the way light bounces off surfaces. It all looks more natural and immersive. And it's not just about the big stuff. Character faces look better in daylight. Interiors feel richer, and even shadows between objects look more realistic. Then there's physics-based weather. Ubisoft introduced a system called Atmos, which means clouds, wind, and even rain are procedurally generated. So as you're riding through Japan, you'll see trees swaying, leaves swirling, and rain actually changing direction with the wind. It's not just for show, it makes the world feel alive. And then there's destruction physics. You can slice through fabric in real time, smash market stalls, even leave trails in the grass when sneaking through. Little details like that make the game feel more tangible, like the world is actually reacting to you. Now, the big question that all Sony stallions are asking, and by stallions, I mean the proud owners of a PlayStation 5 Pro. What's up with the performance there? Well, first of all, congratulations. Whether you upgraded or just bought a Pro, you made the right call. Because let me tell you, this piece of sexy hardware is finally showing its true colors. So let's break it down. Now, let's talk about RTGI. That's ray-traced global illumination. And trust me, this alone makes a massive difference in how the world feels. On the base, PS5, you already get RTGI in the 30 frames per second and 40 frames per second modes. But on PS5 Pro, it goes even further. You get extended ray tracing, meaning more accurate lighting, deeper shadows, and more realistic reflections. Ever noticed how sunlight bounces off surfaces in real life, or how shadows soften depending on the light source? That's what RTGI does. It makes everything feel more alive. The way the sun filters through trees, the glow of lanterns at night, the reflections on wet surfaces after rain. It's subtle, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. But it's not just lighting. The PS5 Pro takes everything up a notch. Better resolution, a sharper, clearer image with less blurriness in motion, reduced pop-ins, no more objects suddenly appearing out of nowhere as you ride through the world, improved texture filtering, ground textures, buildings, and even clothing look more detailed up close. Hair physics. Yes, that gorgeous flowing hair you saw in the trailers? That's fully enabled on PS5 Pro. You'll see individual strands move naturally with the wind and during combat. Better animations, not just for characters, but even things like cloth physics, foliage movement, and destruction effects feel smoother and more lifelike. So, what's the best way to play Assassin's Creed Shadows on console? If you're on a base PlayStation 5, the best option is balanced mode at 40 frames per second on a 120Hz display. But if you're on PS5 Pro, performance mode at 60 frames per second is the sweet spot. And if you want the best possible visuals, go for quality mode at 30 frames per second. Bottom line, the PlayStation 5 Pro is the best console to play this game. If you want next-level lighting, better performance, improved animations, and that cool hair physics, this is the way to go.